we turn to Matthew's Gospel and reading from Matthew chapter 20 and verse 20 to verse 23. Just that short reading this morning, Matthew chapter 20. Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. He knows he's going to be crucified. His disciples are going with him. And now we pick up the story in verse 20. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down asked a favor of him. "What is it you want?" he asked. She said, "Grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." "You don't know what you are asking," Jesus said to them. "Can you drink the cup that I am going to drink?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father." And so just reading so far this morning. Friends, today is the first Sunday in Lent. And I think for many of us, we aren't always sure what Lent is about. We know it's something that happens before Easter, but we're not quite sure what happens in between. My first memory of Lent was when I was a young guy, I guess in grade 1 or grade 2. My parents were churchgoers. In those days, I think the Methodist Church was less Catholic than what it is today. But going to school, we were part of a lift club with a family who was Catholic. And they had a little folksy Beetle, and they had 5 kids, and there was myself and another girl, and somehow we all managed to fit in the Beetle, some of us sitting across the back window in the dog box, and there we were, and they started speaking about what they'd given up for Lent, and they wanted to know what we were going to give up for Lent. And well, we had no idea that there was even such a thing as Lent, never mind that we were going to give something up. But often, that's how we've come to understand Lent. It's the time when we give something up, whether it's chocolate or sugar or wine or coffee, whatever it is. But in reality, Lent is a time when we are challenged to reflect on our own lives for the 40 days. It's not exactly 40 days, it's a bit more than 40, but the 40 days as we prepare for Easter, as we intentionally focus on our journey and our growth as Christ followers. Just like during a busy week, we set aside time on a Sunday to come to church to focus on the presence of God. In a busy year, we set aside the 40 days, the 40 fasting days of Lent, to be intentional about the presence of God. And so whatever we may choose to give up in that time should assist us on the journey. It's no good saying, "Well, I give up chocolate," and you make a thing every time somebody offers you chocolate. "Oh, I can't eat chocolate, I've given it up for Lent." You know, it's about how do we grow, not about what can we prove to others. This year as a congregation we're going to be journeying through Lent, looking at a book written by a Catholic priest called Herni Nouwen. And the book is called "Can You Drink the Cup?" And in it he asks the question, can you drink the cup of life that is set before you? Can you drink the cup that God offers to you? Because oftentimes the cup that we find ourselves holding is not one which is pleasant. It's not one which we would have chosen for ourselves. It's not the one that we expected as a young person to be drinking. And so perhaps you could rephrase the question, can you live the life that you have been given, with live being the operative word? Don't just survive your life. Don't just manage to get by. Don't just exist. But can you live your life fully, extracting every drop of life of the experience out of it, both good and bad? You see, we all live in a life that is filled with ups and downs. All of us have moments of joy, and great and deep joy, where we can celebrate the good things that happen in life. But also, all of us have times when we wonder what it's all about. When we receive news that we struggle to hear, news that is distressing, We find ourselves in a situation where we don't want to be. Times of trial and tribulation, and very often we get into that space and we just want to give up. We want to say, I don't want the cup that is before me. Very much like Len and I are experiencing now with Alex, with his birth, hearing the news that he has cystic fibrosis, and just having to receive that news and journey with it. It's not a cup we've chosen to drink, but how do we live well? How do we live deeply in the midst of the bad news, as well as the good? I know in my life, some of the best times haven't necessarily been the good times. The times that I look back on and remember and say, surely God was in this place. Some ways of time that have been good at the moment. I have a friend called Wayne who lives in China now. He was a friend from high school, and during the time when he was studying, I was studying, we had a lot of time to go out and do things together, and somehow Wayne has a gift for enjoying the moment. And I look back on our friendship together, and I think of the time when we saw biltong being sold cheap in the neighbouring town, and we got in my car, and I had a Ford Anglia, and we went to go and buy biltong, and the car broke down. I think about the time when his sister car broke down in the rain, and we were standing out in the rain getting drenched and laughing about it. Those are the kind of memories that I have, and being able to drink the cup that is given to us. And yet there's another moment which is much sadder. The family went through a time of tragedy. His dad died in a car accident, probably 1991. And then a couple of years later, his sister was also killed in a car accident. And we were coming home from the funeral. And I don't know if it was in the same Anglia or a different car, but myself and I think his uncle and his other sister, we were a group of us. And his uncle comes from Pretoria, and he said, we were talking about which way we were going home, and he said, don't you go past the traffic circle. And now Cape Town, I've realised there are a lot of traffic circles. But somehow there are not so many up in Joburg. And we knew there were only 2 traffic circles on the way home. And so somehow Wayne and I decided that we would take him past all the traffic circles. And we got into the traffic circle, coming home from the funeral, and we just drove around and around the circle. We went to the lecture and drove around and around the circle. It was a silly thing to do. But somehow in that moment of driving around the circles, after coming from the funeral of his young sister, maybe 20 years older, we found a moment of joy in God's presence in that. And I think that's what I'm saying when we speak about drinking of the cup fully. How do we take the life that I have, not somebody else's life, not the life that I wish I had, but how do I take the life that I have with the circumstances that I have to face and drink it fully? And so we're going to be journeying in three stages over the next few weeks to run up to Easter. We're going to begin by holding the cup. We're going to go on to lifting the cup, and we're going to go into drinking from the cup. But before we can drink from the cup, we have to hold it. We must take what is before it and consider what it is that we're going to drink. What is this life that we have about? So I know we're all good Methodists here, so I know there are no wine drinkers among us. But I'm sure you all know somebody, you've got a friend who enjoys wine. Somebody who may even claim to be something of an expert. And when you watch a wine drinker who knows what they're talking about, you know that there's a whole process that they go through before they enjoy the wine. The glass is lifted up. And you look, you check that there's no sediment, salt around a bit to get a bit of air into the wine. Have a sniff to see what the nose is like. There's a special language. Take a sip. Go swirl around the mouth to get the get the flavours loosened so you can taste everything. This is grape juice, by the way. I'm not drinking it. Doesn't have a very good nose. And then finally it's tasted. And the expert who tastes the wine will be able to tell a whole lot about the wine. Its vintage, where it was grown, what the soil is like, what the weather is like, all these different things. The challenge of the sermon series is, if we are to learn to live our life well, is that we learn to do that firstly by holding up our lives to the life of Christ and appreciating the life that we have for what it is. And that's what we're going to have the opportunity to do during Lent. This morning I want to look very briefly at three things that relate to how we hold the cup of life. First of all, to say that it is more than a drink. Living life is more than just being alive. If you're a connoisseur of wine, I don't know if there's a special name for somebody who likes wine. Connoisseur, a winophile is someone who loves wine. You have to know what you're drinking and how to talk about it. You have to be able to talk about it. It isn't just enough to drink. You don't go, somebody who enjoys wine doesn't just go and drink wine to get drunk. They drink the wine to appreciate the flavour and the work that the winemakers put in and the different odours and the different... It's a craft. It's not enough to just drink the wine that is before you. And the same is true for our lives. It's not just about living life and trudging through each day, day by day. Herni Nouwen says this. He says, a life that is not reflected upon isn't worth living. If we are to be fully human, to be fully the people that God created us to be, we have to take a hold of our life and hold it up in the scrutiny of the light. We must think about it, contemplate it, discuss it, evaluate it, and form opinions about it. Is our life good? Is our life bad? Is it worth it? Is it new? What is this life about? And friends, I think that largely is what our prayers of confession are about. It's not about coming to God and saying, Lord, I'm sorry for what I've done. But it's about being able to come to a place where we offer our whole lives to God, good and bad. Being able and willing to examine one's life, to say, this is what's working, this is what's not working. It's the greatest pain in our lives doesn't come from what we experience, but from what we think and feel about what we experience. A moment in a small car going round and round traffic circles. One time Jesus was speaking to his followers and he says this of them. He says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Some translations say, I have come that they may have life and have it in abundance. But what is key here is that life to the full or life in abundance is not a life that is filled with just the good things or happiness or joy all the time, but it is a life that is full of both the good and the bad, and it's an embracing of both qualities and making a choice to live through them rather than to try and flee before them. Sometimes we get so busy trying to run away from the life that is before us that we forget to smell the roses along the way. As I said earlier, some of the most memorable moments in my life haven't been the good times, but have been the times when in the midst of the bad, I've been able to take my life and say, this is mine, and this is where God is. Reflection is essential for growth and development and change. So holding up the cup of life means taking and looking critically at what we're living. It's something that requires courage because it can be frightening. We may have to face questions about our lives. We may have to face doubts about the decisions we have made. We may have to face fears that come from unexpected places. A number of years ago, more than 10 years ago now, I began to question many aspects of my Christianity. But without looking at life critically, we lose our vision and direction. If at that time I decided, no, I'm done, I'm leaving the church, and I'd run away from the church instead of stopping to hold my life up, I would have left Christianity and the church. Instead, by staying, my faith was revitalized with a new way of seeing God, a new way of believing and understanding. And so firstly, drinking is more than just a drink. It's about holding up and reflecting on our lives. Secondly, it's more than a choice. Nietzsche was a German philosopher, and while he wasn't a very good Christian, sometimes he says things that make sense. And he says this, although I've paraphrased his words a little. He says, the only thing that makes life worth living is a long obedience in the same direction. He's talking about discipline, hanging in there when things are tough, hanging in there when things don't make sense. He's talking about holding the cup when you'd rather let it go. What I'm saying is that sometimes the cup is difficult to hold and it's much easier to put it down. And we have a choice as to whether we hold the cup and drink it or not. Very often the right choice is to drink the concoction, even when it seems vile. You see, very often when we're faced with a vile concoction to drink, and there are many different occasions when you can think of having to drink something that you don't like. Maybe a medicine. It may be at a varsity initiation. It may be on Survivor or Fear Factor. When we get given this disgusting thing to drink, and there are two responses. One is that we try to gulp it down all at once just to get rid of it. Or the other is to put it aside, to find a reason not to drink this thing that is before us. Sometimes there's a tendency to live life by gulping down whatever comes our way, especially in today's culture. It's all about go, 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 do this, do that, achieve, achieve, achieve. We've got to build up affluence and achievement and acceptance. We don't stop to appreciate. We don't stop to hold the cup. Or else when we don't like what is before us, we like to say that we have free choice. And we're not going to drink the cup. We're going to choose to not face the bad. So either we grab the cup and drink it down for the purpose of drinking ourselves into oblivion, and we'll speak about that later, or we put the cup aside. We complain that it's too bitter or unpleasant, and we want some sugar or something sweet to help it go down. In both those cases, we need to restrain our impulses. Our impulse to drink and our impulse to lay aside. We know that Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane agonized about the cup which he had to drink. He would have loved to have passed the cup to somebody else. Lord, he said, not my will. And yet he went on to say, your will be done. He took the cup and he drank it. And so when the cup is placed before us, we need to put both hands around the cup and ask ourselves, what am I given to drink? Is it safe to drink? Is it good for me? Will it bring me health? And as we do that, as we consider the cup, we may discover that what we expected to be most unpleasant will be the most helpful and lead to the most growth. Back in 1993, I was part of a Youth for Christ Youth Harvest team, and as the couple who ran the campsite where we did our training, the lady's name was Cynthia, and she, before we went out on mission, she would have everybody in for a session on how to behave in other people's homes. And one of the things she said was, you always eat and drink whatever's put before you. And she told the story of how she was visiting some people in their hut, and they brought out a pot of rooibos tea, and she hated rooibos tea. But she resolved that she would drink it and be polite. And as it was poured into her cup, she discovered that it was red cool drink. Holding the cup, whether good or bad, is a hard discipline sometimes. but it's one which we need to practice. Because as we practice the discipline of holding the cup, we may discover that it's not as bad as what it seems. And the last thing I want to say is that there are many wines, there are many lives. I remember back in the day, and when I first came to visit Cape Town in 1979 with my family, we went around, my parents enjoy wine, they went around to a few of the wine farms, and there were only about 5 wine farms you could visit in those days. There was Stellenbosch Farmers Winery and Niederberg and a couple of others. Now you can't keep up with all the different winemakers. You know, you want to try and go to every wine farm, there's just too many. And so just as there are countless varieties of wine, there are countless varieties of lives. No two lives are the same. No two people are given the same cup to drink. My friend Trevor Hudson is fond of quoting some words of wisdom that were imparted to him many years ago. And they are these. He always says, every person sits beside their own pool of tears. It is no good to compare my life to somebody else's, trying to decide who's better or worse off. I have my life and you have yours. They're both filled with joy and they're both filled with pain. We each have to dare to say, and I want to quote Nolan verbatim because he says it so well. We each have to dare to say, this is my life, the life that has been given to me. And this is the life I have to live as well as I can. My life is unique. Nobody else will ever live it. I have my own history, my own family, my own body, my own character, my own friends, my own way of thinking, speaking and acting. Yes, I have my own life to live. No one else has the same challenge. I'm alone because I am unique. Many people can help me to live my life, but after all is said and done, I have to make my own choices about how to live. I think that part of the problem in today's society is that we're too quick to blame everybody else when things go wrong, rather than to take responsibility and drink the cup. Nouwen closes this chapter in his book by referring to Philip Sears' statue of Puma. It's an Indian name. But it means he who shoots the stars in Massachusetts. And this is what he says about him. He stands with his beautifully stretched naked body, girded with a loincloth, reaching to the heavens with his bow high above him in his left hand, while his right still holds the memory of the arrow that just left for the stars. He is totally self-possessed, solidly rooted on the earth, and totally free to aim far beyond himself. He knows who he is. He is proud to be a lonesome warrior called to fulfill a sacred task. He truly holds our own. Like that warrior, we must hold our cup and fully claim who we are and what we are called to live. And then we too can shoot for the stars. Everybody's life is unique. Many wines, many lives. And so the challenge for this week is to hold the cup, regardless of what it may contain, to contemplate it, reflect on it, own it. And so this week, as we go from this place, as we continue our Lenten disciplines, as we may meet together in small groups during the week, won't you spend some time considering the cup which you have been given, good and bad, and ask yourself how you can more assuredly, more contentedly hold it before drinking. May it be so for you as it is for me.